Flood defences line our coast and are something that we're so accustomed to that we probably don't notice they're there most of the time. But they're a key part of Folkestone and Hythe's infrastructure, and without them our coastline would be retreating dangerously every year. I spoke to John Collier, Shepway District Council's member for Housing and Coastal Protection, and Martin Wybrow, who is the KCC member for Hythe. I started by asking Councillor Wybrow about how rising sea levels affect the amount of flood defences on the coast.
One of the things that you have to remember, certainly about our area, is that for not too many years ago, it was a fair bit of it underwater. So it is definitely a coastline that is susceptible to rising sea levels, and it is very clear-cut that one of the significant effects of climate change is likely to be exactly that. So you can see in a lot of our coastline a lot of investment and a lot of work to try and keep the sea out, as with the big development at Dymchurch over the last few years. There's certainly the sort of long-term and the short-term types of defences. So the one that I've mentioned at Dymchurch is a very large, very major project that has been carried out over the last few years to really build up the sea wall. In other places, there's a lot of sort of shingle-related work that's done to bolster the defences, and there is a coastal communities project that has got EU funding and KCC is involved with at the moment. So it's sort of a continual challenge to keep out the sea, but I think that clearly our bit of coastline is highlighted as one that is vulnerable.
The rising sea levels are a threat to our coast, and the council's work prevents the sea from taking parts of Folkestone and Hythe back underwater. But is a further increase in sea defences necessary? I asked John Collier.
As the levels rise, obviously there needs to be an increase, and the sea defences are in fact designed with the latest predictions in mind. Romney Marsh is at the greatest risk, where the sea defences are not as robust as for example, between Hythe and Folkestone Harbour.
I also wanted to know about the importance of keeping our flood defences aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, aesthetics are important. They're certainly important to the council, and DEFRA, which is the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, have become more sympathetic towards infrastructure, which is aesthetically attractive. So the answer to your question is yes, we are using our best endeavours to make them fit in with the seascape or the landscape or whichever.
John Collier also talks about the risk to homes that are on the coast.
The situation is that homes on the seafront are at risk. In Hythe and Sandgate, there is a 1 in 200 level of protection, which in effect means that it's extremely unlikely. But this is following the 2004 sea defences which were provided. So the Hythe and Sandgate area is not too bad at all. That's not really at risk. When one gets down to Hythe Ranges, it is 1 to 20 level of protection, which is obviously a greater risk. It's flatter there, obviously. And the level of protection is still lower on areas of Romney Marsh. Insurance is hard to get in flood risk areas, and the government initiative, which is being negotiated, I think, with some insurance companies, is to try and ensure that that insurance is available to homes in flood risk areas, and to attempt not only to make insurance available, but to keep the premiums at affordable levels.
The protection of our coastline comes at a cost. John Collier again.
We've got a £30,000 revenue budget on its frontage from Hythe to Folkestone Harbour. That is purely for maintenance. There's a beach management budget of £220,000. The management is obviously recycling shingle, sand and so on and so forth. The maintenance is for the maintenance of the defences.
However, Martin Wybrow thinks that spending money on sea defences isn't enough, and that more needs to be done on a wider scale to stop rising sea levels.
At the end of the day, I think what the council can do is limited sort of changes at an individual level upwards, but it certainly needs big, strong action at a international level, and there is a lot of sort of sitting around, a lot of backing away from targets, a lot of talk, a lot of inaction, and I certainly feel that there's not nearly enough being done across the board.
Global warming is seen to be the reason behind rising sea levels. While tackling this is a global problem, Martin Wybrow believes that local individuals and communities have an important role to play by reducing CO2 emissions.
There is a lot that people can do to reduce their energy consumption, and obviously that makes sense from the point of view of helping the climate, but also helping to reduce bills. At the end of the day, if there is a sort of financial benefit from moves that aid climate change, then that's probably what gets people moving most of all. This is about sort of engaging with local communities, one of which is our community here, Romney Marsh and up into sort of Hythe and into Folkestone, about the possible implications, what communities can do. It's a lot about sort of communication and starting to sort of build awareness. At a more mundane level, there are definitely places that people can go to get help with things like insulation. I might actually also just give a plug for something that we do each year under the Transition Hythe umbrella. Transition Hythe is a local community group. I'm very actively involved in that. And each year for the last 3, and we're doing it again this year, is offering people a free service whereby we will come out with a very sophisticated thermal image camera, and we will show people where they are having energy loss, heat loss from their homes, and we will provide back images, and we will provide back a bit of commentary and some advice on what people can do. A lot of the time, the recommendations that we are making are not big, significant investments. It's not as though it's always sort of wall insulation or cavity insulation. It might be as simple as thinking about thick curtains over doors, over windows, and it is completely free.